Now, the absence of the MKP and the EFF in the GNU essentially delivers the ANC to the Liberals and creates an imbalance. This is the view of Dr Mbuyiseni Ndlozi in an interview with SABC Politics Editor Mzwai Mbeje, where he announces his departure from the economic freedom fighters. About his way forward, Ndlozi said he would now venture into academia and contribute to the country's discourse. Ndlozi also expressed his views on President Cyril Ramaphosa and the GNU on the back of the assenting of the Expropriation Act.
I think that there should still be a rigorous conversation. And as I said to the tweet that you mentioned earlier, my hope is that there would be radical, selfless, non-egotistical conversation in the progressive left. Because whether we like it or not, the moment of the absence of MKP and the EFF in the GNU basically donated the ANC to the liberal establishment. And they are waging a war. That was a very weak ANC, an ANC at 40% and all of that. Of course, some of these concerns for why that didn't happen have legitimacy. But my hope is that there would be, a radical conversation for the progressive forces in the country so that you are not in a coalition government in which every day you are disagreeing about Bella Bill, about Expropriation Act, about NHI, that the battles would be put elsewhere in the implementation of the things that will improve the living conditions of our people, not in the policies that are a heritage of liberation, a heritage of the anti-colonial and liberation struggle. And so I look forward, I'm hoping that day will come when the progressive forces will be able to work together unapologetically.
Right, let's get some analysis, bringing in political analyst Professor Kedibone Phago, who joins us for more. A very good evening to you, Professor Phago. Thank you for your time. I mean, we've just listened there to Mbuyiseni Ndlozi speaking and expressing his views on the composition of the GNU, saying that the absence of the MKP and the EFF in the GNU essentially delivers the ANC to Liberals and creates an imbalance. I mean, what are your thoughts around this?
Point. Thank you for having me. It's quite an interesting point that he's making, and we've actually had this point before, that there is a need to have the progressive left to be part of the GNU and join with the ANC. But I think the kind of politics they have played can only be blamed on themselves, because if you remember very well on how the ANC went around to try and constitute this government, was that they were also invited and they were requested to come and join, but it looked like at that particular point in time that they had very difficult demands that they were making to the ANC. And unlike the DA that actually seized this opportunity and made sure that they use it to their benefits. It is actually the DA that realized that they can use this opportunity to demonstrate to South Africans that they are capable of running a government department at the national sphere.
I mean, all of this comes after months of speculation about his fallout with party leader Julius Malema, where Mbuyiseni Ndlozi is talking. I mean, he's taken a move to step away from politics to contribute to academia, saying it's time somebody did for the people of the country what AfriForum is doing for Afrikaners. And of course, he's now leveraging on his educational background, ending the speculation on whether he was during the MKP or the ANC. And of course, we know the ANC was ready, all open arms, ready to welcome him at the time when we heard Fikile Mbalula speaking about this. What's your take on his strategy and the kind of positioning that he's taken in the wake of all the speculation? And of course, speculation itself was also rife around MKP following Floyd Shivambu's departure from the EFF.
Well, I think it's a huge loss for the EFF to actually just allow Mbuyiseni Ndlozi to live like that. He was part of the collective that actually not only conceptualized EFF and contributed into that, but they actually carried it through and made a lot of conversations and mounted arguments to actually present EFF to South Africans, and they grew that party until now that we saw it starting to actually face a decline, obviously owing to the MK party coming into the fray. But I think the kind of direction he's taking, it's also very refreshing in many ways, because he is an intellectual in his own right. He is a thinker, and I think he will also contribute immensely to the body of knowledge, especially using his own practical background that he will be bringing from his experiences in politics, and also drawing from his own network in the political world. That can actually, if he focuses more on academia for the longest period, that can actually make him one of the critical left scholars in the country. So he's very well gifted, and this is why I think that it was actually a very huge mistake that the EFF just allowed him to leave like that, because they could actually leverage on people like Mbuyiseni Ndlozi to build this party. He's very popular and very well known, and often has his clarity of thought and very persuasive. So he's very charismatic as well in presenting his view. So I just can't make sense around how EFF just, would sideline somebody like that instead of finding each other and ways to make sure that they resolve their dispute. If what you were saying to Mzwai during his interview is correct, then I think it's a missed opportunity for the EFF leader.
Yeah. What was also interesting in his conversation with my colleague Mzwai Mbeje is that how Ndlozi has now seen a shift in Ramaphosa's actions, in President Cyril Ramaphosa's actions. He's now arguing that President Cyril Ramaphosa is in fact no puppet of white supremacy. And I mean, we're talking about someone who grew up in left-wing circles where Ramaphosa would be seen as part of the white capitalist establishment. I mean, that in itself was a kind of an unexpected perspective.
Yeah, it's quite controversial, the kind of politics we are seeing. So obviously, you can then see that we had Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, who was dancing to the EFF tune, and now, sobering up to actually make, I think, proper reflections to the kind of challenges that Cyril Ramaphosa is facing. I think to be president in a country like South Africa, it's always going to be quite difficult to actually say you can please everybody at the same time, because we have actually wide and diverse views as a nation. So representing the EFF, it really would make a lot of sense to look at the president who is now pleasing the West and serving as a puppet master. But if you are genuine and honest and look at the problems that South Africa faces in a very pragmatism perspective, then you realize that it's actually not an ideological issue as such that we are facing. We are facing very practical questions. And I think the kind of politics that President Ramaphosa is playing at the moment, even within the ANC, for me, he may not be doing as much because there are a lot of things we, service delivery areas, think we can work better on. Yeah. But, on average, I think, taking over from Jacob Zuma and the issues of state capture, he's trying.
Yeah. Very well. Thank you so much. Thanks for weighing in on this conversation, political analyst Professor Kedibone Phago, and of course giving us some perspective around Mbuyiseni Ndlozi on the back of the interview with my colleague Mzwai Mbeje.